My new book, The Crash of 2016, is being released this week. So just a heads up on that. And speaking of The Crash of 2016, one of the guys whose name you will see on the very back cover of it, giving a blurb to it, is Senator Bernie Sanders, who just by coincidence is here with us. Senator Sanders, it is great having you once again for the hour. And just to all of our listeners, if anybody is tuning in for the first time, after our initial little rant here, Bernie will be taking your calls. So if you want to talk with Senator Sanders, give us a shout.
And
what's up,
Tom,
Bernie?
if I live to be 1,000, I will never know where you get the energy to do everything that you do.
It's a simple answer, Bernie. I'm a hyperactive kid who grew up.
Well, I don't know. It takes me 5 hours to write the 700-word op-ed, and you are knocking off books faster than I can write a column. So.
Well, this one took 2 years, actually. But thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Well, there's a lot, obviously, that is going on in Washington. Let me begin. Every now and then some good news comes out of Washington. I wanted to talk about some what I consider to be very good news. In the Affordable Care Act, one of the provisions I fought very, very hard for, kind of led the effort on, was to see an $11 billion expansion in community health centers. In the midst of a dysfunctional healthcare system, which we currently experience, community health centers are a very bright spot. And what they do in 50 states in this country is provide high-quality primary health care, dental care, mental health counseling, and the lowest prescription drug costs in the entire country. And they are serving many, many, many millions of people. The Health and Human Services Department just announced yesterday the release of $150 million of that $11 billion we got them, which will establish 236 new community health centers throughout this country. 3 of them are going to be in Vermont, many of them are going to be in California, and that will provide access to health care, Tom, for 1.25 million Americans who will now be able to go into a doctor's office and get health care regardless of their income, get dental care and mental health counseling. So it's a good step forward, and it's something that we should be putting more and more resources into, making sure that everybody in America has access to good quality primary health care and dental care is enormously important. And in the long run, it saves us money because it keeps people out of emergency rooms. When you treat people when they first become ill, they don't end up in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. We lose about 45,000 people every single year who die because they don't go to a doctor when they should, and the expansion of community health centers is a very good remedy to that. So we're glad to see that is happening. I am a member of the Budget Conference Committee, and we continue to have discussions of how we end this sequestration, which is causing a whole lot of problems for folks who use Head Start, people who are on various nutrition programs, the Meals on Wheels program, the WIC program, and that it's just a very, very bad idea. So the challenge that we face is working with a very, very conservative House. How do we come up with a proposal that ends the sequestration and gives us a long-term budget? My own view is that at a time when the wealthiest people in this country are doing phenomenally well, when 95% of all new income being created goes to the top 1%, when 1 out of 4 corporations in America doesn't pay a nickel in taxes, and when the corporate tax burden as part of our GDP is much, much less than it used to be, I think it is absolutely appropriate that we ask the wealthiest people in this country and large corporations to help us not only with deficit reduction, but help us with revenue so that we can address the major economic crisis facing this country, and that is high unemployment. Real unemployment is not 7.3%, which is what's usually on the front pages of the paper. It's really 13.8% if you include those people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time and those people who have given up looking for work. So we have a major unemployment crisis in this country. It is even worse among young people. It's worse among African Americans and other minorities. And this is an issue that we have got to address. So as I have stated many times, my goal is to see us invest in our crumbling infrastructure, our roads and bridges and rail, water systems. Every state in the country needs that kind of help. We create a whole lot of jobs. We have to move this country to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, to combat global warming. We do that. We create jobs. So there are ways that we can do that. And when you create jobs and grow the economy, you know what? Deficit goes down because more people are paying taxes. So that's the issue that we're going to be working on there. One area that I remain very, very concerned about, which gets very little discussion, I think, is the growing wealth and income inequality in America. And I don't know, either from a moral perspective or certainly from an economic perspective, how you have a dynamic economy when so few have so much and so many have so little. And one way to address that issue is something that some of us are working on, and I hope we'll get to the floor in a reasonably short period of time. And we need the help of the American people to get this passed, and that is raising the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. Right now, nationally, the minimum wage is all of $7.25 an hour. A number of states throughout the country, including the state of Vermont, have minimum wages which are higher than that. But what we have got to address is the reality that many of the new jobs being created, sadly, are low-wage, part-time jobs. You've got to have at least a $10.10 minimum wage. Senator Harkin and I and others are pushing that. I think the American people understand that that is the right thing to do. But we've got to get some of, and I think we have virtually unanimous support within the Democratic caucus. It's probably 55 votes. But if we're going to overcome a Republican filibuster, we need 5 votes in the Senate, 5 Republican votes, and we're going to need some support in the House. So I would hope the American people rally upon the need to raise the minimum wage. Congress or Senate also this week passed the ENDA legislation, which would put an end to workplace discrimination against gay people. I think that is part of the strong evolution that we have seen in this country in trying to end discrimination, whether it's against blacks, whether it's against women, and whether it's against gays. So it's an important piece of legislation which passed with a pretty good vote on Thursday. Lastly, as chairman of the U.S. Senate Veterans Committee, I just want to thank all of the folks who are listening, who have served in our military. We're trying to do our best by veterans. We're trying to figure out ways that we can expand and improve health care for our veterans, also include dental care, deal with the issues of military sexual abuse. A lot of issues out there that we're working on, but I just want to take this opportunity on Veterans Day to thank all of our veterans.
Yeah. And Veterans Day is coming up next week, right?
It's Monday, yeah.
Yeah, Monday, yeah. It's also, Louise and it'll be our 44th anniversary, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah. So anyhow, Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders here taking your calls right after the break. It is 15 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We will be back with more of Senator Sanders. Be sure to check out his website, sanders.senate.gov, and sign up for the Bernie Buzz. I get it. It's a great news source.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And also, just a heads up, my new book, The Crash of 2016, should be shipping to bookstores this week. And you can also ask for it at your local library. You can read it for free. And welcome back. Carol in Camano Island, Washington, watching Free Speech TV on the DirecTV satellite TV system. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, hello, Senator Sanders.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. I wanted to find out if you, and what your thoughts are on this subject, if you have heard about the new contract offer that Boeing has offered to their mechanics. They have really asked the mechanics to take huge cuts. They're changing their pension plans from a defined benefit to a lump sum that Boeing will contribute to each year based on their salary. They want the workers to take huge increases in the cost of their health insurance. Right now, health insurance costs their workers about $50 a month, and they want to raise it to about $300 to $400 a month. They just came out with this plan on Wednesday, and they have given the mechanics 1 week to think about it and vote on it. And they have told them that if they reject this new contract, which is an 8-year contract, they will produce the 777X in South Carolina, which means that there will be huge cuts in the workforce in Boeing here.
And that's a right to work for less state.
They also want the state to give Boeing millions of dollars in tax breaks in order to have Boeing produce this plane in Washington State. I wondered if you had heard about that and what you think about it.
Well, no, I hadn't heard about it. But, it's an outrage. It's the continuation of the war by corporate America on working people. And it is, what you've just described, Carol, is why the middle class in this country is disappearing. It used to be that people who built things, whether they were working for Boeing and building airplanes or building automobiles or whatever, actually made a strong middle class wage. And that is disappearing. And what Carol has just described is exactly the reason for that. What companies are doing is exerting their power. They're going to war against workers. Often they're threatening that they will shut down in America and go to China or go someplace else. In this case, I guess they're threatening to shut down in Washington and go to South Carolina unless they get their corporate welfare and they get their major benefit cuts. So thank you for alerting me to that, Carol. It is a sad story that we are seeing all over this country.
Bernie, my dad worked in a tool and die shop for 40 years, and I remember when the contracts came up for renegotiation, we were all really excited because it meant Dad was going to get a raise.
Right.
Then came Reagan. It's really changed since then, hasn't it?
Oh, it's radically changed. And I think a point that is not made often enough, every now and then you'll see an article in some paper that manufacturing jobs are coming back to America. And we're seeing an increase, an uptick in manufacturing jobs. If you look at the fine print, what you find is that many of these new jobs are paying a fraction of what they used to pay. In Detroit, for example, there's almost been a 50% decrease in the wages that new automobile workers are making compared to older workers. So this has a lot to do with unfettered free trade, the fact that American workers have been forced to compete against desperate people all over the world, the weakness of unions nowadays, and the greed of corporate America.
Yeah, 32 years of Reaganomics has really done a job on this. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. Brunch with Bernie. More of your questions, Bernie's answers right after this. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Crash of 2016, The Plot to Destroy America and What We Can Do About It, is now available at all fine bookstores. Crash of 2016 is not just a road to redemption in post-crash America, but a critical wake-up call. Welcome back to the True People's Media, the Thom Hartmann Program, and Senator Bernie Sanders with us for our Brunch with Bernie hour, taking your calls. Wayne in Chicago, listening on WCPT. Wayne, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hi.
Yes, I have a question for the Senator. Yes, Mr. Senator, do you know the exact current status of the TPP as far as the fast track that is on going through Congress, and is there a way legally to stop it in its tracks?
The answer, Wayne, is there is certainly a way to legally stop it in its tracks. What fast track means, whether it's for the TPP or anything else, is an expedited process, and it limits the ability of Congress to have amendments and to alter the bill. I have never been sympathetic to these disastrous trade agreements. This is a huge agreement dealing with Japan and Vietnam and a lot of the Far Eastern countries. It is being written by corporate America and by the drug companies. So I have serious reservations about it. It's also been done largely in secret. But we will do our best, at the very least, Wayne, to make sure that this thing is not fast-tracked.
Paul in San Francisco. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. I'm calling about the post office. And I understand that the reason it's having such financial difficulties is because of the prepayment of medical benefits out 75 years into the future.
Yep.
And I'm calling because those payments are payments to the Fed. Is that right? And
no, not to
so basically that's a receivable enforceable by Congress?
No.
What would be the problem if they just ignored those payments?
No, Paul. What has happened is, this is a result, I think, of 2006 legislation, which the Bush administration insisted upon. And as you've indicated, what that legislation required in an unprecedented way in America, no private company has to do this, no government agency has to do this, 75 years of prepayment for future future retiree health care benefits in a 10-year period. Amounts to about $5.5 billion a year. That fund now has somewhere around $45 billion, I think. My view is that we should eliminate that payment. If you eliminate that payment from the Postal Service, being made by the Postal Service, the truth is the Postal Service today will be in reasonably good financial situation, close to breaking even. So we have legislation in that has a whole lot of support in the Senate that would do just that. We have concerns about another piece of legislation that's out there from the committee, issued by Senators Carper and Coburn, which we think is a bad piece of legislation. So to answer your question, when we talk about the so-called financial crisis of the Postal Service, that is by far, I think it's 80-85% of the problem right there. And if we address that, I think we will save the Postal Service, prevent massive reductions in force, and continue to provide good quality service for our people.
Richard in Winchester, Virginia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, Tom. Early happy anniversary.
Thank you.
What I want to talk about is, Senator Sanders, your minimum wage. I was listening to Rachel Maddow last night, and she mentioned that any time on a state level that minimum wage comes up, it passes like 60-70%. Senator Brown and one other senator got their start when they were elected over minimum wage. And I think that this is like a silver bullet if it comes up in the House. If it doesn't, get rid of Boehner. Just say, hey, you voted against minimum wage. How much did you increase your own salary? And follow through on that. And I think that if Democrats hammer at them with this, it's one thing that crosses all party lines. Republicans make $7.25 too.
That's right. Richard, I think you raise a very good point, and I think you're right, both from the public policy point of view. Look, just do the arithmetic. If somebody is making $7.25 an hour, how do you survive? You just don't survive. You can't pay your rent, you can't make your car payments, can't pay your electricity, can't have any health insurance. I mean, it's just, the arithmetic is such that you just can't survive. If you have kids, it makes it even worse. But it's not just $7.25, which is the federal minimum wage. It's $8. It's $9 an hour. So if we can raise the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour, millions and millions of people who are now really living in very difficult straits will get at least a little bit of breathing room in terms of their income. And I think Richard also raises the politics of this thing. He's right. In New Jersey, and what I think, I don't know if it was a high turnout or not, but 60% of the people there voted to raise the minimum wage. State after state, we have seen that. And poll after poll tells us that the vast majority of the American people, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, understand that $7.25 is a starvation wage, and we've got to raise it. The last point that I'd make on that, when you raise the minimum wage and you put more disposable income in people's pockets, that, in a sense, becomes an economic stimulant which creates more jobs. People have a little bit more money, are able to buy more goods and services. And furthermore, what we have got to end is a situation where companies like Walmart or Burger King or McDonald's are paying starvation wages, and then their employees making $7.25 or $8 or $9 an hour end up having to get Medicaid, end up having to get food stamps, end up having to get government subsidized housing, So in a sense, the United States government and the taxpayers of this country are subsidizing these very large corporate interests. Does not make sense to me.
Clyde in Littleton, Colorado. I just got a 1-minute cue. So quick question for Bernie? Oh, I'm hearing music. Oh, we just hit the break. Okay, Clyde, I'm going to put you on hold. I'm sorry, we got our time cues wrong here. We'll be right back with more of Senator Sanders. Actually, it worked out just right. Bernie just finished an answer. We'll be back with more of Senator Sanders answering your questions on the Thom Hartmann Program on our Brunch with Bernie program right here.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And be sure to check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov, where you can sign up for the Bernie Buzz and find all kinds of great progressive and activist news. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program, helping you win the water cooler wars. Senator Bernie Sanders with us in our Brunch with Bernie segment. And, Senator, you're with us still?
I am right here.
Okay. Clyde in Littleton, Colorado. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Senator Sanders. It's a pleasure to talk with you. My question concerns both parties, either in the Senate or House, keep standing up and expounding the fact that they are speaking for the American people. And I'd like to know what you think about this and what you think we can do to address this.
Well, Clyde, in my view, we are in a rather unusual moment in American political history. I think the Republican Party very clearly, I think as most people perceive, has moved very, very far to the right. This is by no means, not in anyone's wildest stretch of imagination, is this the party of Dwight D. Eisenhower and many other moderate Republicans. This has become, over the years, a right-wing extremist party which believes essentially in ending Social Security, ending Medicare as we know it, massive cuts in Medicaid, privatizing the Veterans Administration in some cases. So this is a very far-right party. And I think in terms of their ideology of giving tax breaks to billionaires and cutting back on programs that working families need, to be very honest with you, Clyde, I don't think they represent 10, 15, most 20% of the American people. If people knew what they stood for, max 20%. Democrats do better. But I think also over, the last many years, the Democrats have become a more conservative. They used to be, I think, generally thought to be the party of working families. I think probably most people no longer think that's the case. They're a centrist party. They're doing some very good things. But I think it would be a real stretch to say that in most instances they are prepared to stand up to big money and take on the powerful special interests that have so much influence in Washington. So I got to say that certainly the Republican Party is way out of touch with where the American people are. And I think you have millions and millions of people who are working longer hours for low wages, who worry about whether their kids can afford college, who may have dropped into poverty, who are struggling with affordable health care. And they're looking around and they're saying, who represents me? Who represents my kids, my family? And I think there's a real political gap out there. So I would suggest, Clyde, that at this point, Republicans are way, way, way out of touch with the needs of ordinary Americans, and Democrats are going to have to do a lot better.
Marcia in Inglewood, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, it's Marcia.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi to both of you.
Hi.
Hi. I'm wondering if either one of you have seen Dan Rather's report on the education system in Finland.
Well, I have a little bit of knowledge of the education system in Finland. I don't know if I saw Dan Rather's piece.
I was just totally blown away. They don't have a parochial school system. All of the kids go to the same public school system. Every school is identical in their teaching methods. All of their teachers have to have, I believe it's master's degrees in education. And their education system costs them about a third less than what we're paying for our education systems throughout this country. And they have, almost no dropout rate.
Right.
they don't start their students until they're 7 years old, because at 7 they feel that they're more ready to start learning than they are at 4, 5, or 6. And they have shorter hours, but the kids learn more. And there isn't any testing. There's no scholastic testing. When those kids are ready to graduate, they are actually ready to graduate, and not all of them are trained in the same way, so that, not all of them are geared towards college prep. Some don't want college prep. Some wouldn't qualify for college prep if they tried, so why bother?
Marcia, let's get Bernie's thoughts on
this.
this.
I think, Marcia, thanks for your observation. As Tom and I have mentioned many, many times, there is so much to learn from other countries around the world. What Marcia is talking about is education in Finland, if my memory is correct, Tom. I think generally in these international exams, Finnish students come close or always at the very top.
They are almost always either number 1 or number 2, Finland and Singapore, the two top countries.
A very strong educational system. Okay. But I think that quality education and respect for education, and my memory is correct, they attract the best and the brightest.
Their teachers are paid about the same as their doctors.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. So in other words, this is a country that values education, respects teachers, respects intellectual activity, also has a social safety net, which is far, far stronger than what we have in the United States in terms of providing health care to all people, strong child care, strong parental rights when you have a baby and getting time off from work, strong retirement benefits. So I think in general, whether it is education or many other areas of social life, there is a lot to be learned from the Scandinavian model, which is a model which has strong egalitarian roots, where people work together, where you don't have the income and wealth disparities that we have in the United States, where kids go to school and understand that it is important to do well in school because they have an opportunity to make it into the middle class. In our country, one of the very sad aspects of how we handle kids is that a lot of kids at a very young age understand they are never going to make it into the middle class, and they tune out intellectually. We have 30% of our kids dropping out. So to answer Marcia's very good observation, there is a lot to be learned in many ways from what is going on in Scandinavia.
Joe in Chicago Heights, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello?
Hey, Joe, you're on the air with Bernie.
Hi. Thanks for all the good work you do. I just had a question, a theoretical question for Senator Sanders, and that would it be possible to pass a law that forbids corporations from making donations to any politician or not-for-profit organization if those corporations receive money from the federal government through businesses or tax deductions? And likewise, would it be possible to pass a law requiring companies to pay back the depreciation they deduct before they can sell their industry to an offshore company?
Well, Joe, theoretically, it is possible to do anything. But I think in terms of what you're talking about, I think the way we get to the root, the easiest way and the simplest way to getting to the root of the absurdities of our current campaign finance situation, where as a result of Citizens United, corporations can spend an endless amount of money on the political process. I think the way to get the cleanest way to do that is simply to end this disastrous Supreme Court decision of Citizens United. And I think also we need to move to public funding of elections. That is what we really have got to do. I think that's the cleanest approach which will pass constitutional muster. So the issue that you're touching on of campaign finance may well be the most important issue facing our country, because unless we get a handle on that, unless we prevent corporations and big money interests from buying elections and buying politicians, all of the other issues, whether it's health care or jobs or the environment or global warming or education, those are not going to be able to be dealt with in a significant way if big money is able to buy the Congress. So thanks for the question.
Mark in Chico, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, how are you today?
Good.
Hey, I was thinking, all these people that don't have voter IDs, I'm wondering if a nonprofit or a 501c4 or something like that could start making donations and helping these people get birth certificates or IDs or whatever. And also, I have one comment. It seems like our democracy, it seems like, has been bought off, and I'm really getting I'm so tired of it.
Okay, we just have a minute left here, Mark, so let's let Bernie get in here and answer.
A very valid point, and one that a whole lot of people throughout this country share. And that gets back to the previous question from Joe, and that is, if big money is able to buy elections and buy candidates, we have to ask ourselves what kind of democracy we are living in, whether we're living in a dollarocracy or a democracy. In terms of the voter ID stuff, Mark, I think what we really have got to do is take these states to court. Their goal is very apparent. They don't want poor people voting in elections. They don't want old people voting in elections. They want to exclude as many people from the electoral process as possible who will vote against them, and that is so undemocratic, so outrageous, and so illegal and unconstitutional that we have just got to be very aggressive in taking them on.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. Back with more calls for Bernie right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And my new book, The Crash of 2016, is shipping this week. You can check it out in your local library. Welcome back. Donna in Dallas, Texas, watching Free Speech TV on the DirecTV satellite system. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hartmann, and thank you for this platform that you have offered us to speak to wonderful Senator Sanders. My question is regarding something called the windfall elimination provision. I am a retired public school educator in Texas. But I have also worked in what we in education call the real world. And therefore I accrued Social Security working in the real world. But as a retired public school educator receiving my pension from the Texas Teacher Retirement System, I don't get all of those Social Security benefits because of the windfall elimination provision. And in my own case, there are $500 a month I don't get because of that. And $500 a month for me, as a retired public school educator, is a lot of groceries. So I'm wondering how we can motivate people in Congress to fix this. As I understand it, two things in particular. There are only 12 states, and which states they are, I am not sure, that have this issue. That's number one. And number two, as I also understand it, the whole windfall elimination provision was established in 1983, and I don't remember under what circumstances that happened. But if we can please fix it, because there are over 1 million of us who are affected by it.
Donna, this is an issue that has come up, and it comes up periodically, and I think it's a very legitimate issue. So it's something that we will take a look at and see what, I don't want to make any promises here, but see what we can go forward on.
Cherie, if I'm saying that right, in Moncton, Maryland, watching Free Speech TV?
Yes.
You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator. First of all, thank you. You are truly the sane person in our capital. My question is that why can't rather we fight for minimum wage? I'm 70 years old. I remember minimum wage being $4.35. Of course, in return, gas was 67 cents a gallon. Why can't we fight with corporate America to include the employees as a part of profit sharing? In other words, they put the capital and we put the manpower. Why do they get 99.9% and we end up getting nothing and being literally slave for life for these corporations? Is it possible?
Just have a few seconds here, Sherry, for Bernie to answer.
Bottom line is, Sherry, thanks for the question, and it's worth a lot more discussion than we have time today. I happen to believe that one of the economic models we have got to look at in this country is not just profit sharing, but worker ownership of companies, ESOP models, and that's something that we are working on. The truth of the matter is, as we heard at the very beginning of this program today from Carol, who was talking about what's going on with Boeing in Washington, workers are being ripped off day after day after day, and we've got to figure out a way and a mechanism.
We'll pick that up in just a second. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Sanders, Sherry was just asking about why is it that the owners of the companies get everything and the workers who actually make the companies profitable very often get screwed.
And again, as I mentioned, we heard from Carol in the state of Washington earlier today about what's going on in Boeing workers, which is repeated every day all across this country. The corporations do very well, and they're squeezing and pushing workers, forcing them to pay more for health care or get lower wages or whatever. I think what Cherie is raising is just, we are doing some work on that. There are in Vermont and Ohio, some other states, some efforts toward move toward worker ownership of companies. We have companies in Vermont that are literally owned by their workers. They make the decisions. They share the profits. Others have strong ESOP programs where workers do benefit and get increased wages and benefits as the company does better and better, and they're involved in that process. But I think that whole direction of giving workers more say about how companies are run, enabling people to get the benefits when companies do well, I think that it's not only the right thing to do for the workers, it's the right thing to do for the economy. I think people will feel better about their work. They'll be more productive, less absenteeism, and I think that's a goal that we should certainly shoot for. We have introduced a couple of pieces of legislation that would move us in that direction.
Cora in Taos, New Mexico, listening on KVOT. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator. Since we have a separation of church and state, why can't we have a separation of corporation and state?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, the bottom line here is, in America, what I will tell you is what you already know, is that corporations have enormous influence over what goes on a daily basis. And what has exacerbated that influence is this terrible Citizens United Supreme Court decision, which they said that corporations, right out of their own treasuries, can contribute into the political process. So rather than seeing a separation, we're seeing a marriage of corporations in the political process to the detriment of American democracy. I think, Cora, the answer, as I mentioned earlier, and just an issue of huge consequence, is not only the need to overturn Citizens United, and some of us have constitutional amendments in to do that, but it really is the drive toward public funding of elections so that big money interest cannot be allowed to buy candidates. And that is just an issue that we've got to continue to work on.
Jimmy in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Good to talk to you all today. What I wanted to speak about was, I do speak about Medicaid a lot, and I just wanted to ask Senator Sanders, why is Medicaid so hated, so ridiculed, and so stigmatized? I've had it for so long. I don't like to tell people I'm on Medicaid. Yep. I like to tell them I have Medicaid. I receive it. And I'd just like for you to comment on that.
Well, Jimmy, good question. Thanks for asking it. It is part of the overall war that we're seeing on the part of big money interests and Republicans against the poor people. And they're attacking food stamps. We have 85%, I think, or 80% of the people on food stamps today are elderly people. They're working families or lower-income families with kids. They're people with disabilities. And yet the Republicans want to cut food stamps by $40 billion over the next 10 years. Medicaid is the same thing. They want to make devastating cuts. And that fits their narrative. You see, their political narrative is that the rich get richer and millionaires, billionaires growing all the time because they're just wonderful, wonderful, bright, hardworking people. But for ordinary people who slip into poverty or who are unemployed and who are low income, those are just terrible, terrible people ripping off the system. And Medicaid is just another example. Food stamps are another example. Nutrition programs, another example. And that feeds to a certain political base out there that accepts that logic. So instead of having the courage to take on the big money interest, they're always beating up on poor people and lower income people, people on Medicaid. So I think that's kind of why you see these attacks on Medicaid. And by the way, part of the Affordable Care Act, as you know, was to provide an expansion of Medicaid in every state in the country. It would be paid 100% by the federal government for the first 3 years and 90%. And the idea that states around this country, Republican states, are saying we are prepared to allow low-income people not to have any health insurance, not to have any Medicaid, even though it's going to cost the states nothing. We are prepared to allow that to happen and endanger the health and well-being of millions of people is, to my mind, just beyond comprehension.
Bernie, we have about a minute and a half before the end of the hour. Thoughts on the week, on the future, Congress, whatever's on your mind?
Well, there's a lot on the table, and I think we have discussed some terribly important issues today. The issue of campaign finance reform, the fact that the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and these other guys can spend huge sums of money, and not just Republicans, you have Democrats, some Democrats doing it as well, is not what American democracy is about. Got to keep our eyes on the prize. End Citizens United, move to public funding of elections. This attack against working families, we've heard that from Carol, what's going on in the Boeing contract, the attack against unions, the attack against poor people. We heard it at the beginning of the show, we heard it at the end of the show. Jimmy is talking about the attacks on people who are in Medicaid, who have misfortune to be poor, but who are entitled, like every other human being, to health care. They're being attacked every day. Republicans want to devastate, make massive cuts to Medicaid. Carol talks about what's happening to union workers in Washington by Boeing, attacks on those folks. So across the board, what you're seeing is an unprecedented level of attack by the big money interest in Wall Street against working families, against lower income people. They want more tax breaks for the billionaires, and they want to cut back on Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare. I think their priorities are absolutely not where the American people are. They're wrong from a moral and economic point of view, and we've just got to continue our efforts to fight back.
Thank you so much for all you do toward that, Bernie. Thank you, Senator Sanders. Thank you so much for being here. Great talking to you.